When should you start thinking about creating your own label? Is it a good idea to create one right from the start? Wouldn't it be better to wait for the business to take off before setting up a label? Because setting up a label doesn't just mean you've got a structure, it also means costs, fixed running costs, and responsibilities in terms of accounting, taxation, and the various bodies you'll be working with. So when should you set up a label? In my opinion, there are two reasons why you should set up your own label. The first is financial. Basically, when you start to get some business, some money coming in on a regular basis, and you have some investments to make, it becomes worthwhile to set up your own label. Let's say, for example, that you're running a micro business or simply not your own, or even that you're managing your business a little without a legal framework, which I don't necessarily recommend, but if you do, that's the way it is. Imagine that you're a little more structured as a micro business. If tomorrow you're earning 10,000 euros from your music business, but you had to spend, let's say, 10,000 euros to earn those 10,000 euros. It's not bad. You're at zero. You don't earn anything, but you don't lose anything. And at the same time, you're advancing your project because you're developing your visibility. If, for example, you finance a video clip at 3,000 euros, 5,000 euros of promotion, and 2,000 euros of I don't know what you've spent to develop your visibility, you bring in 10,000. It's not glorious, but it's not shameful either. The problem is that if you're a micro entrepreneur, you have to pay taxes and charges on your incoming sales. So if you earn 10,000 and you have 22% tax, for example, or to put it simply 20%, you'll have to take out 2,000 euros. So you're at minus 2,000 immediately, even though you'd managed your business well because you'd managed to bring in as much as it cost you. Now, if you were a company, what would have happened is that you wouldn't have been taxed. Why wouldn't I? Because in a company, you're taxed on the profits, not on the figure in quotation marks. So we'd have said, okay, 10,000 euros came in, but 10,000 euros spent to bring it in, we're at zero. So from there, it's okay. In the same way, if you'd spent 20,000 euros to bring in 10,000 euros, the loss would have been recognized and you could have carried it over from one year to the next. This is not uninteresting because if the following year you make more than 20,000, instead of being taxed on the 20,000, we recover the 10,000 loss and deduct it from the 20,000 profit you would have made. So it's a pretty interesting tax and accounting system. On the other hand, if you had spent 5,000 to earn 10,000, for example, instead of paying 20% tax on the 10,000 you earned, you would only have paid 20% tax on the 5,000 difference between what you spent and what you earned. So the first reason why you should ask yourself, is this the right time to create my own label? Very simply, do you make money from what you do? Do you have to invest to keep making money? If so, you need to ask yourself the question, make an appointment with an accountant or lawyer and think about setting up a label in the form of a company. Why not? It could be an association. There are other slightly more complex forms that we won't go into in this video, but that's when the question arises. The second reason is when you're obliged to have a legal framework. I'll give you an example, but if tomorrow you're a beat maker, you want to produce, you meet an artist and you want to sign him. The ideal way to sign this artist is to create a structure. You can sign an artist as a micro-enterprise, but it's very complicated. It's so expensive that there's absolutely no point and it's risky. You can, of course, do it with an association, but the capital outflow you'll generate will be much harder to manage, but it can be a strategy. There are artists I know who do this, who set up an association and sign themselves, or the artist, or a beat maker who signs the artist he's spotted. In the end, the profits stay within the association to be re-injected so as to continue to develop the business so that several years later they eventually move on to a corporate structure. This can obviously be a strategy, but if you ever need this legal framework, the best option is to set up a company. Here again, the question arises, should I set up my label now? Should I wait? Can I make do with what I've got? Or is it time to take action? For me, these are the two main reasons why you should ask yourself this question. Now, there are other cases that I find interesting to bring up in this video, and that's all the people who create their label at the wrong time. There are people who say to themselves, for example, I want to set up a producer's business, I've spotted an artist, I'm going to sign him, but before that I'm going to do things right, it's square and so on, I'm going to set up my label, I'm going to sign this artist. Yes, but at this stage you're not making a cent with this artist, you're not making a cent, so unless you've got a lot of capital and you're planning to invest a lot and you want to disperse that money via a company, then it could be interesting, but in most cases that's not the objective. The objective is to appear professional, square, organized and serious, but it's pointless. It's like people who set up a label and invest all their money in creating a website, designing business cards, hiring a community manager to manage social networks, etc., except that it's pointless, except that it's useless. When you're setting up a label, the only areas of expenditure that should interest you are the production budget and the promotion budget. That's all you need to be interested in. Basically, what allows you to create the raw material to sell and what allows you to sell that raw material, literally. The rest is irrelevant at first. That comes later. Later, you can buy a logo, you can make a website, business cards, and whatever else you want. But in the beginning, there's absolutely no point. So that's one scenario I've seen. The second case is people who set up a label to, I'm searching for my words, to give themselves a genre. In other words, there's a fashion effect. The people around them are all making music. They think it's time. They're not too artistically inclined. So they say to themselves, you know what? I'm going to set up a production company and do a bit of management, booking and production. I'll try to bring in a bit of business. The problem is that being a producer and a manager are two incompatible concepts. There's a conflict of interest, so you need to be aware of that. It's illegal to be producer and manager of the same artist. And then there's often a bad reason for setting up a label, which means that for the same reason as the previous case, you end up spending money for nothing. Or the worst case scenario I've seen is the kind of guys who do this, who have a fucking artist on their hands and literally kill his career because they don't know anything about it. I have someone in my entourage, for example, who set up a label around his son because he saw that his son had talent and he thought, come on, I've pushed the son, etc. And the problem is he can't do anything about it. And the problem is he's ruining his career because he doesn't get along with anyone. He doesn't understand much about the industry, so he feels like everyone's out to steal from him. He's messing with the whole world. He doesn't know how to bring in money, and worse, he doesn't know how to spend it wisely. But he set up a label, he's been losing money for 2 years now, and in my opinion, he's not about to make any more. For me, the two good times to consider setting up a label are when you've got a business that's growing and you've got investments to make, and you ask yourself, isn't it better for accounting and tax purposes to have a company to manage the business? The second case is when you need to. For example, if you come from an artist, they give you a contract, a structure, whatever. Or the case I had, for example, the first contract I had to do with a record company was that there was an advance to recover. You needed an invoice, you needed a company, you had to give a wax number, etc. And we had nothing at all, and we didn't have any of that, so we had to create the structure at that point. That's it for me. I hope you've enjoyed it, been motivated, learned something, been inspired. If you have, drop me a big like. Subscribe to the Successful Producer YouTube channel. It rewards my work and motivates me to keep throwing quality content at you. I hope so anyway. Let me know in the comments if you're in one of the situations we discussed today in the video. Don't hesitate to ask me your questions too. If you're in a particular situation and would like my advice, I'd be delighted to give it to you if it would help. For those of you who might be thinking of setting up a label or in any case of developing your activity as an artist or producer, you should know that 2 years ago I set up a company called muzisecur, which provides support for artists, producers, publishers and directors. What we do in fact is simplify all the administrative and rights management for you. In particular, we manage your membership of the various collective management organizations, SCPP, SPPF, Adamis, Pedidam, Sakem as a publisher too, which can also be abroad, SOCAN, Sabam, Suiza. We also take care of declaring your works, managing conflicts, dealing with duplicates when there may be any, and handling your annual sales declaration, which I remind you is a compulsory act for all producers or self-produced artists in France. In short, we take care of absolutely everything. We also offer a distribution service which is free of charge. We have a 2% retention fee, and believe me, that's a small price to pay given the work involved in drawing up royalty statements, counting, etc. In short, there's a whole range of services we offer. In short, there's a whole host of services available to you. Today we're approaching the 500 labels and independent artists supported by muzisecur. If this is something that might interest you, please click on the link in the description. You can book a call either with me or with a member of the team, and you'll already have the chance to ask him or me questions about your project. We'll give you some information, and if you're interested in muzisecur, we'll answer your questions and show you what we do. I wish you all the best for the future. Defy all odds and say ciao ciao.